You're not lazy or broken, and you definitely don't lack discipline. What you lack is your own mind. I know it sounds crazy because you're using your mind right now, but here's what I want to show you in this video. Most people are walking through their entire life using a brain that's been configured by someone else. Their fears, their doubts, their sense of what's possible, none of it is original. There's a 3,000-year-old practice, one word in an ancient Hebrew text, that is the most precise antidote to this that has ever existed. By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what it is, exactly how to use it to create exactly what you want, and know exactly why it works on a neurological level. But first, I need to show you what's actually happening inside your brain, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. There's a term in neuroscience called exogenous attention. Exogenous means from the outside. It means your focus is not being chosen. It's being captured. Right now, there's rooms full of engineers and behavioral psychologists whose entire job it is to trigger your exogenous attention before you even made a single conscious decision this morning. The news, the notifications, the scrolling, none of it is random. All of it is designed. Every second your attention is captured by someone else's agenda, it's not building yours. 3,000 years ago, before algorithms, before behavioral psychology, before any of this, God gave a man named Joshua one instruction, not a battle plan, not a strategy, not a coalition, one instruction. Joshua was carrying an impossible assignment. Moses, the man who parted the seas, was dead, and Joshua had to take millions of people into a land full of walled cities and giants. In that moment, here is what God said. This book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful and do according to all that is written in it. For then you will make your way prosperous, and then you will have good success. One practice, one focus, one word. The Hebrew word for meditate here is Hagah. This is the same word used to describe the sound a lion makes crouching over its prey. Focused, repetitive, physical. To Hagah is to speak the truth out loud, repeatedly, until your whole system is saturated with it. This isn't mystical. This is the most active thing a human being can do with their mind. In a moment, I'm going to show you the neuroscience that explains exactly why it works. When you Hagah, when you intentionally speak and ponder a chosen truth, you are engaging in what neuroscience calls endogenous attention. Endogenous means from the inside. You're choosing what your brain fires on, regardless of what's happening around you. Here's the principle that makes this profound. Neurons that fire together, wire together. Every time you activate a specific thought, a specific feeling, a specific spoken truth, you strengthen that neural circuit. You're not just thinking a thought. You're building a physical structure in your brain. Now, here's what this means at a practical level. The man who rehearses anxiety every morning, who scrolls the news, who runs the mental loop of everything that's wrong, is performing neuroplasticity. He is wiring himself for anxiety. The architecture is being built whether he knows it or not. The man who wakes up and mutters his truth, who speaks his vision before the world has even confirmed it, is also performing neuroplasticity. He is building a brain physically structured for creation. You're always wiring something. The only question is whether you're choosing what it is. The Heart Math Institute research adds one more layer. When your intentional thought rehearsal is combined with a coherent emotional state, when your heart and brain are synchronized, cortisol drops, cognitive flexibility increases, and the body enters into what researchers call psychophysiological coherence, the optimal biological state for creation. Hagah is a complete coherence protocol 3,000 years ago, before we had instruments to measure it. Joshua was staring at the wall cities and the giants. His circumstances said impossible, but he noticed the sequence in what God told him. He didn't change the circumstances first. He didn't tear down the walls as an act of good faith before Joshua committed to the practice. The internal transformation preceded the external results. Always, this is the pattern across the entire wisdom lineage. Neville Goddard called it living from the end, holding the feeling of the fulfilled vision before the evidence arrives. Waddell said, the formless substance responds to the mental image held with gratitude and faith. Jesus said it most simply, whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you have received it and it will be yours. Believe first, receive second. This isn't mysticism disconnected from science. When your internal state is consistently calibrated to a specific reality, your perception reorganizes around it. Your reticular activating system, the brain's filter, starts surfacing information, opportunities and connections that were invisible before because your brain now knows what it's looking for. You attract what your nervous system is resonating with, which makes the attention economy an existential threat to creation. If you spend 10 minutes on the news and 0 minutes in your vision, you are Hagahing fear. You are wiring your brain for the world as it is rather than the world as you would like it to be. You're building the wrong structure, and then you're wondering why creation feels impossible. I want to make a distinction that I think most people have never heard, and it's going to change how you understand your own creative blocks. Productivity and creation are not the same thing. Productivity asks, how do I do more with what I have? Creation asks, how do I bring something that doesn't exist yet into existence? Completely different questions, completely different neurological states. Productivity can run on a low-grade anxiety. Anxiety is neurologically a kind of forward-leaning urgency. You can produce from it. Many people do, but you cannot create from it. Creation requires a nervous system that is not scanning for threats. Because when your amygdala is activated and your brain is in survival mode, blood flow and resources shift away from your prefrontal cortex. Your prefrontal cortex is the region responsible for imagination, long-term vision, pattern synthesis, the ability to see what doesn't exist yet. When you are afraid, that part of the brain goes offline. This is why every mystic, that's why every tradition kept returning to the same instruction. Be still, fear not, peace be still. It wasn't comfort, it was a prerequisite. You cannot create from a contracted nervous system. You can survive, you can react, you can manage, but you cannot bring something genuinely new into the world from a body that believes it is in danger. Hagah, chosen, heart-engaged, repeated truth is one of the most direct technologies you have for moving the nervous system from threat into coherence. And coherence is where creation lives. So what does it feel like on Tuesday morning when the bills are real and the vision feels far away? Let me give you the practice in 3 movements. Movement 1, find your truth, not a generic affirmation pulled from a list. Your truth is the specific felt reality of what you're being called to build. It should be concrete enough that when you say it, your body responds. There should be a pull, a resonance, even a slight warming of your chest. If you don't know what that is yet, start here. What is the thing that keeps returning even when you try to walk away from it? That thing is your truth. Start there. Movement 2, Hagah it. Speak it out loud in the morning before the phone, in the car, in the margins of your day, not as a performance, but as a ritual you endure, as a genuine rehearsal, as if you know that wiring the circuit is how you're going to change reality, because it is. Speak it especially when you don't feel it, because neuroscience is clear. The brain does not require belief, before it begins to rewire. It requires repetition. The belief follows the wiring. Movement 3, guard the input. Every piece of content you consume is Hagah someone else is performing on your nervous system. The scroll, the morning news, the conversation that rehearses everything that's wrong with the world. All of it is writing code in your brain. You do not have to live in a bubble, but you do have to decide each morning whose voice is going to be loudest in your mind, because the answer to that question determines what you build. I want to speak to something that I think lives underneath most creative blocks. Some of you are not just attention bankrupt. You're in a season where the vision that used to feel so clear has gone silent, where the passion that used to be so automatic is now a memory, where you keep reaching for the fire and your hand comes back empty. The hardest part is not the silence itself. The hardest part is not knowing if the silence means it's over. In the mystical tradition, they call this a dark night of the soul. Going through a dark night is not evidence that you are wrong. It's not a failure of your practice, and it's not a sign that the vision was an illusion. The dark night is the most important creative threshold there is. Jung called it individuation, the disillusion of the false self as preparation for the emergence of the true one. Rumi wrote the Masnavi from inside of it. Every person who has ever built something that lasted went through it. The loss, the stripping, the silence. It's not the end of creation. It is the crucible of it. But here's what the dark night requires more than anything else. It requires you not to fill the silence with noise. Most people, when the vision goes quiet, reach for more stimulation, more content, more external signals, because the internal silence feels unbearable. But the silence is where the new thing is forming. Every time you fill it with scrolling, you interrupt the process. Hagah in the dark does not look like declaring victory from a place of confidence. It looks like holding one true thing, even when everything else is uncertain. It looks like muttering, even weakly, even through tears, that the darkness is not the final word. That is not weakness. That is the bravest creative act there is. Jesus used a very specific word for the reality he was pointing towards. He called it the kingdom. I want you to separate the religious association for a moment, because what Jesus was describing is not a destination you arrive at after death. It is not something you access through the right denomination or the right doctrine. Read what he actually said. The kingdom of God is within you. Luke chapter 17, verse 21. Seek first the kingdom. All these things will be added. Matthew chapter 6, verse 33. The kingdom is like a mustard seed, the smallest thing that when planted becomes the largest structure in the garden. Matthew 13, verse 31. He was describing a coherent internal state that when cultivated consistently reorganizes the external world around it. That is not theology. That is a description of how consciousness interacts with reality. When Jesus said, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. He was describing neuroplasticity before the language existed. When he said, ask and it shall be given, seek and you will find. He was describing the reticular activating system, the brain's filter that surfaces reality based on what you've told it to look for. The kingdom is not a location. It is the inner state from which all outer creation flows. The only way to build it is with your attention. Every time you Hagah the kingdom, every time you choose the internal signal over the external noise, you're planting a seed. And Jesus was clear that the seed does its work in secret, in the dark, before there's anything visible. The kingdom of God is as if a man should scatter seed on the ground. He sleeps and rises night and day, and the seed sprouts and grows. He knows not how. Mark chapter 4, verse 26 through 27. You do not have to manufacture the outcome. You plant it with your attention. You protect it with your focus, and you trust the process that has been embedded in creation from the beginning. Most people think the kingdom of God is somewhere you go Jesus said it was somewhere you live from. The kingdom of God is within you, not above you, not ahead of you, not waiting for you at the end of a good life, within you right now in this moment. The question Jesus kept asking in every parable, in every healing, in every impossible moment was not, do you deserve this? It was, what do you believe? Because belief, genuinely held, heart engaged, spoken, and rehearsed belief is not a spiritual posture. It's a neurological instruction. It tells your brain what to filter for. It tells your nervous system what state to hold. It tells your reticular activating system what to surface from the noise. When you seek first the kingdom, when you orient your attention to the inner reality before the outer one, you are not being naive about your circumstances. You are being precise about the order of creation. Inside out, always. The kingdom first, the walls come down second. That was Joshua's instructions. It's yours too. So here's what I promised you at the very beginning. I told you that at the end of this video, you would know exactly what the practice is, exactly how it works neurologically, and exactly why it is the most direct path out of creative paralysis. Here it is distilled. You're not lazy or broken, and you do not lack the talent or discipline or worthiness. What has happened is your attention has been quietly colonized. The life you are trying to build cannot be built from a mind that is not your own. The ancient practice is this: Hagah. Mutter your truth, speak it out loud, rehearse the reality you're building before the evidence arrives. Do it in the morning before you scroll. Do it in the margins of your life. Do it especially when you don't believe it yet, because the neurons that fire together wire together. The brain does not require certainty before it rewires. It requires repetition. And here is the cost. You'll have to say no to the noise more often than feels comfortable. You'll have to sit in the silence of an unconfirmed vision longer than your fear wants you to. You'll have to choose your own signal over the algorithms every single morning before the results are visible. This is the cost, and it is worth everything. Creation is something you don't stumble into when circumstances align. It's something you wire yourself, one morning, one Hagah, one chosen thought at a time. 3,000 years ago, a man stood at the edge of an impossible task. No evidence, no precedence, no guarantee. One instruction: meditate on this day and night. He didn't wait for the walls to fall before he committed to the practice. He hagged his way into a new reality. He muttered and pondered and spoke truth until his inner world was more real to him than the giants in front of him, and the walls came down. Not because of strategy, not because of perfect execution, but because the man who walked up to those walls was not the same man who started muttering months before. His brain was different. His nervous system was different. His capacity to act from faith rather than fear was different. You're not going to find your way into creation. You're going to wire your way into it. That's where we start. Meditate on it, wire it in. Comment the word kingdom below, and I'll show you exactly how to take this further. Now go create your world.